And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for today's Rugby News live show. It is a Thursday, 1 o'clock is the time. So we are about 24 hours away before we really start to kick into the weekend gear and massive weekend of sports to come. We have got finals on finals on finals. There are two massive rugby finals, a massive football final this weekend. There's an IPL final as well. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But today we're going to be talking about the latest rugby news. We're going to be looking a little bit at the Sharks game as well as Leinster versus Toulouse. We're going to be looking at some very big news about Jasper Wiese and his involvement in the Irish series, as well as all the sort of summer tests for the Springboks. We're going to be talking a little bit about transfer rumours in the rugby world. Also be looking at the Premiership Team of the Season and a bit of SAFA representation there as well. So plenty to come over the next sort of half an hour. So if you are new, make sure you smash like on the video. Make sure you subscribe as well. Let's start with some breaking news for Jasper Wiese, which was announced about an hour or two ago. And that is Jasper Wiese is set to miss the entire Ireland series, as well as the tests against Wales, which was going to miss anyway because it's outside the test window, Portugal, and the two opening tests against Australia. The Springbok number 8 has officially been banned for 6 games following his red card in the final game of the Premiership season. So, I mean, couldn't have timed it any worse. Literally, he'll have to serve all 6 of his games in the Springbok international season. It is quite interesting that the Wales game counts, although technically he wouldn't have actually been available. They would have had to have made him available for us and opted to allow the Springboks to select him, which genuinely Premiership clubs, top 14 clubs, don't do. They don't genuinely allow players to be selected outside of the international window. So that was an interesting part of it as well. I'm sure you probably find Leicester Tigers, I suppose it's any game you might be able to be picked in. So yeah, a bit of a what I'm looking for the word. Anyway, so that is the main thing. So he is missing those games. It's a big loss for the Springboks, and the question then is, who replaced him, and lots of options at number 8 for the Springboks. No Dwayne Vermeulen, obviously he's retired, and now no Jasper Wiese, which means there is a massive opportunity for someone new to put their hand up and to make themselves a potential starter, or at least make themselves, pretty essential to the Bok 23 and the Bok sort of 33, depending on how big the squad they generally travel with. And those options are the likes of an Evan Roos, Cameron Hanekom, and Peter Gomedi, for example. Those have all been involved in the alignment camps down in Cape Town with the Springbok, stuff like that. Outside shot, for example, the likes of a Franco Horn from the Lions, who has not been invited, or we don't know if he's been invited to the second one. There's a Pepsi Bootleg who's been putting his hand up. In terms of the players within the squad, Kwagga Smith is the sort of the obvious pick in terms of players who went to the World Cup that can play at 8. We did have 3 players who could play at 8 in Dwayne Vermeulen, Jasper Wiese, and Kwagga Smith. But it'll be interesting to see if they decide to go with Kwagga Smith or whether they will continue to try and use him off the bench. Because, goodness me, I mean, what an impact he was off the bench. For me, probably one of the best loose forwards at the World Cup, if not in the world last year. Despite being genuinely a sort of impact player off the bench type of situation. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below, who do you think would you start basically in that number 8 jersey for the Springbok test against Ireland in particular? That's obviously the very big one. So I think also probably a good thing that Jasper Wiese has got this ban, not so much for his disciplinary record, and he'll be gutted to be missing it. But he's played so much rugby in the last sort of calendar year, last 2 calendar years, really. And he's never really had any time off. So, he played his last game for Leicester, I think it was about 2 weeks or a week ago. It was last weekend. I think it was the last weekend of group games. And now he'll play his next game in August. So he'll have genuinely 2 months off. Hopefully they've told him basically have 2 weeks, go and rest and stuff like that. Then start sort of keep your conditioning, get within the Springbok camp. Probably the end of June, really, actually. So you can kind of have a month off where you can just go and relax, reset, get himself ready. And his first game, in theory, would be against the All Blacks. What a game to be able to make a return after receiving that ban. So it's not all doom and gloom. We've got to look at this as an opportunity to play new players, an opportunity to blood somebody else, but also an opportunity for a key player for the Springboks to get some rest and to make sure that he's fit, firing, and ready for the next season. But yeah, that's coming out within the last few hours. Right, let's talk about the Sharks, shall we? It is a huge game tomorrow night. The Sharks' opportunity to salvage a season. Now, I put a vote in the poll on YouTube saying, will the Sharks win the Challenge Cup? And 100% of people saying yes so far. So the question is, what do they need to do? Well, they need to be at their best. They need to pull out a performance that they haven't put in the entire season, to be brutally honest. They've had showings throughout the season where they're going, yeah, that's the team that they can be. But they haven't, for me, yet put together an 80-minute performance where I've gone, jeepers, that's a good side. That's a URC winning side. That's a side that can contend in the Champions Cup. And they need to start doing that because they've got a side on paper and a squad that should be doing that. That should be challenging for all trophies, on all fronts. They've got the depth where I think they're going to be very competitive come the Currie Cup. On a side note, if you're a South African fan, there is the SA Cup final this weekend, Griquas versus Pumas, happening in Kimberley tomorrow. Not tomorrow, Saturday. Just on a side note. But the Sharks, who've had a dreadful URC season, have an opportunity to salvage it by sneaking a Challenge Cup win. And I do mean sneaking because they burgled their place in the final after a very dodgy performance, it must be said, in the semi-final. And they had to come back from behind. Look, they played well, and the comeback was good, but they were out of it, and I think a better side would have put them away, to be honest. So, yeah, I think they're very lucky to be in the Challenge Cup final, but it's not about luck. It's about what happens, and it's about playing in front of you, and they've got a massive opportunity now to become the first team to win a European title. What a mental story that would be for a team who's probably performed the worst we've seen of any of our sides in the URC and the likes in the last few years, to be the first to win a European title. So a big opportunity for John Plumtree and the squad. In terms of some team news, very important team news, is that there will be no Lekanya. The Sharks captain has officially been ruled out with injury. We're not sure exactly how serious it's going to be. We haven't had confirmation with regards to, is he going to be available for the Springboks? And so it's been a couple of a bad week, really, for Springboks with regards to losing Damien Willemse potentially for up to 4 months. That's the entire Rugby Championship, the Ireland Series, the Portugal Test, the Wales Test. Also now losing Jasper Wiese for 6 of those games, and Lekanya fitness now also being a big question mark with regards to, is he going to be available for those tests? And the good thing is that I think even if you were to be available, not a guaranteed starter these days. With the form of Jesse Creel last year at the World Cup, he was absolutely sensational. For me, probably one of the top 5-6 most consistent performers during that World Cup campaign. So has really, really earned his stripes. Not that he needs to earn his stripes. I mean, we're talking about players who played over 50 games for the Springboks. But in particular, last year, I think was playing his best. And for me, it was his jersey now. Lekanya would have to come back and try and get that jersey off of JC Creel. But you want the depth, because as soon as now JC Creel gets injured, you've got no Lekanya, you've got no JC Creel. Are you brave enough to play Kane and Moody? And if not, who are your outside centre options? Because we haven't played a lot of people at outside centre. Henk van Wyk was somebody that they really rated, and they had him in the alignment camps, but he's now been injured and hasn't had a lot of opportunity there. If you look at the various teams, for example, Stormers, Ruan Nel was out for the season, so they've kind of been making makeshifts. We want to see the Similarities had a few games there, but he's certainly not anywhere near a Springbok camp at the moment. David Creel, somebody playing inside and outside centre, could be a very good option. So it'll be interesting to see where they go if they were to experiment at 13. I reckon we'll probably see a Kane and Moody at 13 against, for example, Portugal, and that would make the most sense for me. But JC Creel is certainly going to get the nod at 13 in the at least for the first few games there. So with regards to the Sharks, no Lekanya, but it does look like Ethan Hooker is available, and Neil Powell saying that it also looks like Evan Etzebeth's going to be fine. So it'll be interesting to see how they go, because Hooker's played both at outside and inside centre. I'd imagine he'll probably go to 13. Francois Venter will start at 12. So he is fit apparently and ready to go. Is Francois Venter, so they've got options there. It looks like Eben Etzebeth and Vincent Koch are also both fit to play. So they will be massive for the Sharks, whose team should be announced any moment now. I'm actually just like checking my inbox now to see if it has been announced, because it'll probably be announced probably within the next hour. And I think it'll probably be quite straightforward. You're gonna have a front row, Oxenshire, Bongi Manambi, Vincent Koch, Eben Etzebeth probably next to Brand Cobbler in the second row. A back row of Vincent Stuka, Pepsi Buthelezi, James Fenter for me would probably make the most sense in regards to what we've seen from them recently. But Grant Williams will start a scrum half. See Masuko fly half, and Papimpi, Bernard Koch will be the wings. Plus, at full back centers will be Venter and Ethan Hooker. And we'll have to wait to see who will be inside and who will be outside. But pretty sure that will be your Hooker combination. So it's a good Shark side. It doesn't get much better. And it'll be a strong bench. The likes of Instuko will be coming off the bench. And they might have a corner roll, for example, coming off the bench. I've been very impressed with. No Jaden Hendrickson, so your backline replacements probably like Buddha Chamberlain, Cameron Wright. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to go with a 6-2, 5-3. I'll probably go with a 5-3. They generally do the Sharks. So it's a side that can definitely compete, but it's a very good Gloucester side who were very good in the way and very professional in the way they put away Benetton, who tried to get back into the game, threatened to maybe cause a bit of an upset, but in general, they were just too good with Gloucester. And playing in the UK, the game is at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Kickoff is at 9 o'clock. South Standard Time. It will be live for 8 o'clock if you're over there in the UK. So I think there will be a very big Gloucester support. I think there will be a decent section of Sharks fans. We saw when they played at the Stoop that there was a decent amount of Shark supporters there. So there's definitely, there's a very big expat community in London, and obviously being rugby fans, even if they're not necessarily Sharks fans, they'll probably come out and support the Sharks. So I do expect the Sharks to have a reasonable amount of support at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but you do expect Gloucester to have the bulk of it. In terms of South African and watching the game as well, the likes of Ruan Ackerman said to be involved. Lots of chat about him. He was potentially going to come back. I think probably had talks with some of the unions. I was really hoping the Lions were going to look at bringing him back. He has then opted to extend his contract with Gloucester, so deciding to go sort of that route. But he'll be on display tomorrow night. He's somebody who apparently England are very keen to cap. Not really, doesn't seem to be on the Springbok radar. But we'll have to find out exactly what is happening there with him, and an opportunity for him to show what he's about. And I think a player who is there and thereabouts. I'm not sure he'll ever play for the Boks, but I don't think he's a player who'd ever let the Boks down if he were to be picked. I do think he's probably good enough, and I think that he's a player who's, if he had stayed, I think we'll probably be in the Boks setup. I think you look at the way that he was playing for the Lions before he went over, and he was about 20 years old at the time, 21 at the time, and for me, was one of the standout loose forwards. And unfortunately, I think he's been one of those who have not benefited from going overseas in terms of his international prospects. Jasper Wiese continues to kind of be the only one who has really made it whilst being based overseas, and for the first time. Majority of the players who are based overseas were well within the Springbok setup before making their move. Your Franco Mosters, Ches and Colbys, your Malcolm Marxes, Vincent Koch when he was overseas, Peter Slefter Toy, your Hanjay Pollards, Kwagga Smith, even Andre Esterhuizen, maybe wasn't always part of the Boks squad, but has worked with Rassie Erasmus, has been part of those squads before being included back in the World Cup squad. So Jasper Wiese was really the only player who's been invited. Maybe you look like a Reinhard Alstad or a Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg, who kind of came and went, a bit of a flash in the pan, both of them. But Jasper Wiese was really the only one who has made it as a first-time sort of member of the squad whilst being based overseas. And I think it might change, the more that we sort of see. But there's certainly a lot of players who put their hand up. We've been talking about Tyron Green a lot this week. But Ruan Ackerman, I think, is someone who, if he had stayed in South Africa and continued to play at the level he was looking to play at, could very well have been part of that Springbok squad, and maybe could even be a World Cup winner. So you do have to kind of weigh it up. It's not nearly as simple as just saying, well, if I go overseas and I play well enough, I will get into the mix. You have to play. It's not well enough. You have to like smash the door down. Jasper Wiese, Premiership Player of the Season type of things. Same as Andre Esterhuizen. Those are the labels they had to pick to get themselves back into the Bok mix and to get themselves into that sort of selection frame. They had to be the best in the league type of thing. That's the kind of standards you have to get. You have to get to a point where you can't be ignored with how well you're playing. Whereas I think if you're in South Africa and you base yourself in South Africa, you are far more on the radar of the coaches. You don't necessarily have to be like the best player in the entire league to be able to get that call up. As long as you're sort of pitching up in the local derbies, you're outperforming most of the players in around you, you'll kind of get that nod. You'll be part of alignment camps because from a availability point of view, that there's obviously better agreement with the SA Rugby and the local unions, which means that they are available for alignment camps. They're more available for potential tests outside the test window. They have more control over being able to give them rest and how much game time and minutes that they sort of clock up. So it is more beneficial for your Springbok chances to be based in South Africa. I think even Japan, for example, they've got a pretty good relationship over there with those clubs. They often allow, for example, if you look at those tests outside the test window at the end of the year, the Japanese clubs will allow and say, no, it's fine, just stay and play that extra test, for example. When they've been injured, they've been down in South Africa, recovering from injuries and been part of alignment camps. So there's been a good relationship with the Japanese clubs who have really bought into the fact that they've got Springboks players and it's almost like, well, it's kind of a difference, they kind of feel, well, we've got these Springbok players, these are, first of all, world-class players, and, because we're so grateful to having this kind of quality, we're going to allow them to be as available to the Springboks as possible and continue to sort of grow the Japanese rugby story by continuing to have them in the league itself. Whereas when you play in the top 14 Premiership, it's a bit more sort of like ownership type of vibes. So this is our player, and we pay the bills for this player. Therefore, we're not going to allow him to play any more rugby than we have to let him play, because injuries and stuff like that means he can't play for us. And that doesn't benefit us at all. And that's kind of where the issue comes with a lot of players who are based in the top 14 in the Premiership, is they don't get released for these sort of tests outside the test window and even alignment camps and stuff like that. In theory, that those top 14 players, their contracts run as they run, and they're saying, well, we're having training or whatever, you're not allowed to leave, you're not even allowed to go and join them. Up until that, I think it's like Article 53 or whatever is that the official test window is, which is when they then can go and join up and play with the Springboks, and the international clubs can't do anything about it because that's a World Rugby window which stipulates that you will release your players for that sort of period. So yeah, I think the Sharks will have to be close to their best and have to put up a perfect performance. Neil Powell basically said that as well. He said, we've got to be clinical, we've got to be at it for 80 minutes. And I think that 80-minute performance is something very, very important. As I mentioned, I haven't seen the Sharks put in an 80-minute performance, just yet throughout the season. And this is the time where they have to do that. They cannot switch off, because final rugby, a team like Gloucester, they're not going to give you let off. If you switch off, they're going to punish you. Yeah, it's final rugby. CM Masuku, for example, his boot was basically the reason that they were in the final. He was fantastic against Timor. But if his boot doesn't pitch up tomorrow and he is off his game, then they're out. Not even out, they're lost. They lost the final. So they've got to be at their best. And looking at some of the comments earlier, Brandon was saying, I hope Ruiz gets to start at 8. He's been in such good form lately. So MC was saying, Sharks have all the players, but I've lost so much faith in them as a fan. If a Lions game and Sharks game was on the same time, I would watch the Lions game. Well, why wouldn't you watch the Lions game? We're just so much more entertaining to watch. Better side, we've done the double over the Sharks. I have said a lot of Sharks supporters last week when I said the Sharks are a waste of space because they've lost and didn't help out the Lions. I think people just didn't really have a sense of humor about it. Obviously new to the channel and don't know that obviously I'm not being that serious. What I did enjoy was all them having a go at the Lions, and they're going, no. We have got not even a quarter of your resources, and we've outperformed you easily this season. We've beaten you twice this season. We don't have a single current international player in our side. One of the 2 international cap players we have in our side is retiring. He's 40 years old. The other one is Ruandre, who's deep into his 30s. So don't sit here and talk about how the Lions are going backwards and we're a useless union. First of all, we'd be a lot better if you guys didn't start poaching our bloody team, which is part of the game, which is fine. But I did enjoy the fact that the knee-jerk response from me saying, well, you guys are a bit useless because, could just do us a favor was, oh, we're so much better than the Lions. Because you're not. Yeah, you're going to win a Challenge Cup tomorrow night and potentially the reason you're not going to be in the Champions Cup, which is going to make me even more pissed off. But yeah, for those who were a bit triggered last week, wasn't that deep. Wasn't that deep. Life's too short to be that serious, people. I am not genuinely supporting Gloucester tomorrow, okay? We can all calm down. By the way, if you are new, we will be live tomorrow night. It is obviously the Challenge Cup final, and we're going to be doing a live watch-along, both on YouTube as well as on TikTok. We're going to try something a bit new, try and get some new people involved in the channel, so it'll be cool to see some different people there. Nathan, thank you very much. I'll check to see what the issue is there. Saying, do you think Ulrich Lowe should play against Ireland with Jasper out? I don't think I'd play Ulrich Lowe at 8. I'd probably play Evan Roos, would be my gut. I think they'll start with Evan Roos and then look to bring Kwagga Smith off the bench. I don't think that Cameron Harnicum will necessarily suddenly jump the ship. I think he's slowed down a little bit. I think he's got everything. He's a very talented player, has so much to his game at such a young age. And started like a house on fire. I don't think his last few months has been quite the sort of same impact as it was beginning of the season. Peter Gamedi is going to be an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see if they give him minutes. I reckon we might see him against Portugal. So a lot of big decisions for the Boks to make. And then Nathan's saying, also, I think Warwick Galant deserves to play for the Boks again finally. Well, there is space in the number 15 jersey. We've been talking about Tyron Green a lot, who we don't even know if he is on the Springbok radar because, again, he's not based locally, so he wouldn't have been part of those alignment camps, but we don't know if he potentially could have been or would have been had he been playing the way he's playing down here. For all we know, he actually is in the Springbok coaching staff's plans, but we just don't know what those plans are necessarily. So we have to wait and see exactly what will happen at fullback. But yeah, I mean, I think a Kieran Horn, for example, I think will have his eye on it. No Fassi and Warwick Galant in the initial lineman camps. Maybe they'll look to go back to Warwick Galant and Aple Fassi. Both are capped Springboks. Galant's obviously played a bit more. He was part of the last World Cup squad. Aple Fassi was dropped, to be perfectly honest, from the squad. And I think issues there. This is why, I put the poll out yesterday on the channel. I didn't include Aple Fassi. And a lot of people were very upset. But I think that there's issues with him and the coaching staff. I don't think massive issues, but I think the coaching staff have seen fundamental flaws in his game that until he really does figure out, they're not going to go back to him. And they talk about having the right type of people, the right type of players. And I think at the moment, I don't think he fits the Bok mold. Warwick Galant, the way he's playing now and the fact he's been part of it, maybe a bit more suited to that. And they could go back to him. But again, not been part of a lineman camp for a while, not really been on the Bok radar for that long. Jan say not so sure about the Sharks. They have not really played like champions. Maybe some of their so-called superstars have not been fully committed. Just my opinion, and won't bet on it. I think that's an interesting point. We haven't seen the best necessarily from some of the internationals throughout the season. I thought that during Clermont, that was what was very interesting about that comeback. If you look at that last try, the carry from Pepsi Buthelezi, key player from the Sharks, the box kick from Grant Williams, the retrieve from Eben Etzebeth, the offload from Vincent Stuka, the combination from to Mapimpi. You had a lot of Springboks involved in that build-up of that try, and you can't sit there going, well, that's why they're there. That's why these players are at a different level. That's why you paid in the big bucks. And even, as I said, the likes of Vincent Stuka, who was a big signing for the Sharks, not a Springbok player, probably could be if he was eligible. I think the way he was playing for the Lions 2 seasons ago, I think it would have been hard to miss or to leave out. But those marquee signings are players that they really expect to stand up in the big moments, because that's why you pay the big money. That's why there are important players in your team. So that final try, you're sitting there going, well, that's why we have them. But unfortunately, I think for the Sharks is that they've been saying that they're not been saying it often enough. It's been too few and far between. And in fact, a lot of their non-Springbok, non-marquee signings have been the big performers, like your CM Masukus. Vernon Clark in the last month sort of turned it on. Your corner roles, who's really stepped up this season. So even James Fenter, who's somebody I'm surprised has had so much game time, has been very consistent for the Sharks. Joan saying, I sure hope they win, saying, I actually think that Jacques Vermeulen would have a lot to offer the Springboks, given his tackling, breakdown ability, work rate, overall value to any team he plays for. Yeah, he was part of a report saying that apparently a lot of England players potentially, or South African players on the England radar rather, like Bernard Jansen van Rensburg, And on that note, I want to talk a little bit about the Premiership team of the season, which was announced this morning. And there was some decent SAFA representation for players in that squad. First up, he's been absolutely phenomenal for Bath this season in his debut. Stephen Thomas, the try-scoring tank du Toit, is named in the team of the season at tied to what a season he's had. Been absolutely immense for Bath, who are potentially looking to go all the way. Another South African in the form of Jasper Visa, at 8th man there. Also had a fantastic season. He continues to be the standout 8 in the league, where there are lots of good 8s. Ben Earl being on 7, Courtney Laws. I mean, if you look at that, actually, Ben Earl, Jasper Visa, Courtney Laws, the loose trio, it's a bit childish, isn't it, in terms of how good that potentially is. Then Bernard Janssen van Rensburg was named at 12 in the Dream Team. What a season he's had. He's somebody that is potentially, apparently, on the England radar. And I think somebody who probably would add a lot to England. He's can play a 12 or 13, and the centres in England, for me, have been quite poor recently. I think they've really struggled to find, a real good option. Henry Slade is one of the better ones, who was named in the team of the season, but they've struggled to find a partner for him. And then Tyron Green has capped off what has been a phenomenal season for him by also being named in that in that team of the season. So good to see a bit of SAFA representation over there. And it's an interesting reaction to these sort of team of the season, because I look at them and think how fantastic it is that we're exporting such good talent. Some people get a bit upset about it, well, they should be playing here, and well, if they want to play for England, they must play for England. I think players must try and play international rugby, and if that means they're not going to be able to make for the box, and they make the decision, well, I'd rather have a very big, good, solid, important role career for another nation, rather than playing, a test here and there from the Springboks, then albeit, you look at how important Pierre Schoeman's come for Scotland. Look at the career Duan van der Merwe's had for Scotland. He wouldn't have had that for the Boks. I think he probably could be part of a Boks squad, but I don't think he wouldn't have had the career he's had at Scotland had he decided to stay here. Or try and represent the Springboks. So I don't begrudge any of these players for choosing to play for a different nation. I think it's a global game, and if you go and you decide to make a decision and it pays off, then good on you for having the guts and the nerve to be able to do that. Nathan said, double checking, Malcolm's available for Ireland. Do you reckon Deon Free's in the picture this year? I'll be surprised if we see Deon Free this year. I just don't really see. Sounds harsh. I don't really see the point. I think he was an important player for us last year due to the combination of injuries that we did have. But if Malcolm's available, which supposedly I think he is set to be fit for, he wouldn't have played any rugby, but is set to be fit for the series. You're going to have Malcolm starting or Bongi starting, Malcolm off the bench. I think we've got better loose forwards than Deon Free, it is the start of a new World Cup cycle. So, you're not going to be playing him against Portugal, for example. At the end of the day, the two important tests, probably the Ireland tests, that's a big one. That's you play your best 23, regardless of age, whatever. You decide, this is our 23 to beat Ireland. This is who we're going with. And after that, you start building. That Portugal game, for me, is a building game. The Rugby Championship, I'd like to try and win, to be honest. I don't see why we can't. And I always think that the Springboks are not given the respect they deserve, through maybe our own fault of not picking up enough trophies in between World Cups. We won a World Cup, but between that World Cup and winning the next World Cup, we won a British and Irish Lions series, but that was it. You never won a Rugby Championship, for example, and I think you need to be able to do that. That's why those New Zealand teams are considered the best, because they just won so many trophies along the way. And I mean, it sounds silly, but even like when was the last time we won a Nelson Mandela Freedom Cup, for example? Those kind of things. And maybe it sounds arbitrary, and a lot of these trophies are arbitrary, but we don't really get to play for much in between World Cups, apart from Rugby Championship. So we can't just spend 3 years just not caring about our results. We need to pick up trophies. We need to be a bit more consistent, and I'd like us to take that attitude this year and go out and try and win the Rugby Championship. It's going to be an interesting year for New Zealand. It's a brand new era with Razor in charge, so it's an opportunity for us to try and take advantage of that. We've got a far more settled group. Yes, we are now building to the next World Cup, and probably have to start making some big decisions with regards to who's in those plans, who's not on those plans, so you don't get to 2-3 years time and all of a sudden have 4 or 5 key players retiring and you can't really fill their boots. But obviously for that Ireland series, you just pick who you need for that series. Joanne says, what approach do you think we have to take against the Irish when they arrive? Standard, be big up front, and dare to be a bit more expansive in the back line. We obviously haven't played them with Andre Pollard in a while. Molly Liebach played last year, and the year before, I think it was David Willems at 10. So the last time that Pollard would have played them, probably would have been in South Africa when we beat them, actually. So an interesting decision to make a 10, with regards to if you want to play a more direct game, or if you want to play a Molly Liebach and say, right, well, we play a more expansive and a more threatening game with him on the park. How are we going to beat Ireland? Are we going to try and take them into the arm race, or take them to the gutters, as they say, and kick threes and do it? Or do we want to play a much more expansive, open sort of style of rugby and hope that works? We're going to have plenty of time to talk about the Ireland series. I'm hoping we're going to get a box squad announcement in the next week or two for that Welsh test, which was actually a month yesterday, so less than a month officially. The URC group stages will come to an end next week. So, for example, after that, they'll know exactly who's in the quarterfinals, where those quarterfinals are taking place. So it could be Stormers, Lions, and Bulls all involved in the quarterfinals, in which case those take place on the 7th and 8th of June. And if any of them win, then they're in semi-finals on the 14th and 15th. So I think if players go out in the quarterfinals, they can still be involved in the box, because they can have 2 weeks with the box. As soon as they make a semi-final, those players are not going to be available for the box, because you'll be playing 14th, 15th, 1 week out, and the box plan on the 22nd. So if all three of those teams, miraculously make semi-finals, for example, which might not work with regards to how they all might land up, it could very well be a team of Japanese-based players and Sharks players, which is probably the best. If there's going to be one team available from a second perspective, you want to be the Sharks, with regards to having Evan available. You've got a complete front row there. You've got Evan over there. You've got Grant Williams. If Jaden Hendricks is fit, you've got 2 scrum halves there. You've got Olakanya's injured, but you've got Mapimpi available. So that's a pretty good core of the team. By the time you add a Malcolm Marks, a Peter Steph the Toy, Franco Mostert, Kwaka Smith, Ches and Colby, it becomes a lot easier to sort of pick that side. But it's very interesting to see what happens. You kind of almost want all 3 South African teams to go far in the URC, so that we can really start to see which for the fringe players are actually rated by the box. But we're going to wrap it up there for the day. So thank you very much for joining me across the various platforms. We will be live tomorrow night, as I mentioned, for the Challenge Cup final, as well as on Saturday for the Champions Cup final. So make sure you join us throughout the various days, as we sort of bring the European competitions to an end, before we then shift focus to the URC, and then finally to the Springboks season, which really gets underway at the end of June. Please do smash like on the video on the way up. Please do subscribe and follow if you are new.